Start it like we normally do with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now opening public comment at 4:21. Mr. Parsons, do we have any electronic comments at this point?
We do not.
Is anybody in the audience would really like to ask a question or make a comment? We'll be leaving public comment open for a minimum of 30 minutes during the rest of the meeting. If anybody has anything, please just get my attention and I'll recognize you when the time is right. Next up, our budget work session, the continuance of our last work session, essentially.
So you have at your seats, there is a packet with a spreadsheet. It says off to the left, budget 26-27, updated 1/14/2026. And there are some copies there if folks would like to see a copy of that. This explains the various reductions that we had made when we started the budget at 9.59%. We are also proposing for the board's consideration, there is a health reserve account that the board has that has $87,000 in that account. That account was set up many years ago for to address potential costs related to the insurance at the time, the health insurance, but it wasn't used, it wasn't accessed. We had proposed it in past years as if needed, it could be used. And we haven't needed to use it. We've reduced the budget by that amount, but then with subscription changes and so forth, we didn't need to tap into those funds. So that is something the board could consider doing as well here. You have it highlighted below in orange, which would further bring the budget down to a proposed increase of just over $1.9 million or a 5.47%.
All right, this is, to be clear, this is the pay portion that is not included in the actual budget itself. This is.
Correct. This is like, it's like an expendable trust, but it's a health reserve account.
No.
No, he's
sorry,
talking about the
whole-
contract.
The whole thing.
Yes,
This is what we expect, any of these three numbers without the reductions, with the reductions, SA expenditure. This is the amount of money that the grand total budget will increase just on pay.
no, for operating budget, for operating. So this page is talking about the operating budget.
Okay.
The teacher's contract is a 1.3% increase that would also be added. So this would be 5.47, add another 1.3, and then the lights would be an additional. If you actually look at page, let's go to page, page 5. We go to page 5. Ashley did break it out. So Article 3 will be the teacher contract. That's 1.3% over last year's budget. Article 5 would be an increase of 5.74% unless you take it down further.
That's the
right?
budget. That's the operating budget,
That's the
Article
yeah.
5.
But that's without the health savings account. The lights at this point would be 0.56. So if those were all to stay the same, your overall impact for people would be 7.6% compared to what they paid last year.
I have a question about the health reserve. And I haven't finished my first term, so I'm still learning things. How would money be replenished in that?
So most likely you would close that account.
Okay, so this is like a one-time use.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one that you could expend and be done with. It was set up, I think there was like a self-insurance or something going on years ago,
Mhm.
at least, maybe a decade and a half plus, that it was set up specifically for that. And so it's kind of has hung in there, but I think it is one you could probably use up and close.
Go ahead, Nancy, and then Duncan.
So my experience with the health reserve account is for when there is, a couple of very serious health issues in the population using the health services, in which case everybody's goes up, and so that helps to cover it, but it doesn't sound like that's.
Yeah, I think that was like maybe when it was maybe the self-insurance or something, because our rates are
different kind
driven
of
by,
insurance
yeah,
coverage, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it was set up, I think, with one purpose. Because it is a health reserve, I believe the board has full authority to be the ones, like you don't have to, you have the authority to remove those.
Without a hearing.
There-
But we
There's
haven't ever
different,
used
Do
it.
we have another fee yet for insurance?
Not for health insurance, no. This is-
That was my similar question, but.
This
I
is the only
missed
one.
it.
What was it?
Do we have another expendable trust fund for health insurance? We do not.
We have one for capital improvements,
for facilities,
facilities, and that's it.
we have facilities and special education.
Special ed, you're right.
I guess-
And those have different
Activity
rules
vehicle.
than a
Right.
health reserve account. So it is one way that you can provide some relief to the budget.
Go ahead.
I guess my concern would be if we use it all now, that's creating a cliff
Mhm.
that next year will be even. I think I would support using some of it, but not all of
Exactly what I
it,
was gonna say, yeah.
because I think it creates an impression that will be hard to get around next year.
Yeah, we're about to go through our health insurance,
Yes.
kind of figuring out what that's gonna cost us in the future. So, yeah, I would think the same, using it now seems.
Partially.
I mean,
Yeah.
Nancy, and then Ed.
It sounds like we've never used it to offset an extremely high increase in health insurance. I remember a year when it was
Yeah.
25.7% increase, so we haven't ever used it for that, right?
We've actually reduced the budget by an amount saying if we needed to, the board would then utilize the expendable trust. Again, it's hard, we're planning a budget so many months, ahead of
Right.
when it will actually, be in place. People's subscriptions change, some salaries change, there's always some movement. So it has been used to reduce the number, but we haven't actually needed to withdraw from it.
We did it 2 or
Interesting,
3.
okay.
It was about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Ted?
Do we have, and this might be more for the CBA committee, do we have any inkling of whether or not, and I was just gonna say they are, but to what extent health insurance rates will go up in the next year, 2 years?
That's the crystal ball everybody is looking for.
All right, so we're playing Yahtzee with.
sounds like we just did with
This,
Go ahead, Abe.
just thinking about potential cliff, this is not that much money, or I mean, like, I think this is not reducing, this is less than 0.5, right, this is, as a percentage increase, if we were to use this, we're not reducing it by 2 percentage points. So, Duncan, just to your point,
Yes.
I'm just thinking, I don't know if that's that big a factor, to think like, oh geez, why did it go up 8% this year and it went 6%? It's not that different.
I understand that, Abe, and it's a good point, but I think there are certainly some taxpayers that feel like we should pull every lever that we can. And I think what Siobhan has proposed is a middle ground that, let's do something,
Mhm.
because we can.
Yeah.
But we don't want to shoot the whole kahuna,
Just on principle. I mean, we're not,
because
because
there are good reasons to keep that there too.
okay, that's what I have. I haven't heard like the good reason to sort of keep that pot of money there.
Well, it's just a little bit of money. It's not a lot of money,
Yeah, yeah.
but pennies make dollars.
What is the risk associated with expending all of it? If any.
That it will bring-
Simultaneously, what is the risk associated with not expending anything?
Right.
So if we needed some next year,
It's not there.
it
Yeah.
just isn't there.
Right.
Which we cross that bridge at that time.
Okay.
So, Duncan?
I mean, but I would anticipate we'll have exactly the same kind of need for it next year and the year after and the year after. And if we use it all now, we're gonna, we'll sit there next year and say, well, we could have brought it down, 0.4%, and now we're gonna go to the taxpayers with, 7.6 instead of 7 point, whatever. I understand your point.
Yeah, I
It's
get,
not much, but I would think maybe divide it in 3 and use it this year, next year, and the year after. Or a half, or,
I mean, I would almost say, don't use it at all, save it until after we go through our health insurance review. And the fact that we're proposing, a $359,000 Article 6 for field lights, and we're looking at pulling $87,000 from a health trust, it doesn't seem to jive with me, right? Just keep the money, go through our health insurance review. If we need it next year, then we can tap into it. We're asking, it's a wash, right? It's a small amount of money. Why pull it out of this year? Save it. Like Gabe said, it's not gonna impact the budget all that much. It's 0.02, it's 0.02% or whatever it is. So, I mean, that's my thought process behind it. That's all.
but now to argue the opposite point that I was making in support of what Charlie was, I mean, what about the people who would say, well, you had some, $10,000 is a help, or $15,000 is a help, what do you say, you didn't do anything?
Yeah, but I just don't know if you go to page, I guess if you go to page 3, right, you look at the estimate of the actual impact of what the assessed valuation of your house will be, and then how that equates to what the percentage of your tax, what is that number? What is that 87,000 record? Does that change that from 0.337% or 0.337 in Sandwich for field lighting, or 0.49 for net assessment to 8.9? Is that
Yeah.
$5? I guess I would want to understand that a little bit deeper.
I understand where you're bringing up the field light, as a warrant article, but
Which I'm
that,
supportive of that. I am
that-
supportive of that.
but it is something that the town may not
Mhm.
ultimately support. We still do have to pay for the increase in the health insurance. You know what I mean? So if this is a bit of money that we have sole discretion over, it's not really the same, I don't think.
I would agree with you on, that it's apples and oranges, I think, with the field lights. You have to
Oh,
pay
as a
for one.
reporter, okay.
It's just a fan.
Sorry,
Gotcha.
You have to pay for one, you don't
Right.
have to pay for the other.
Yeah.
But this again goes to discretionary, but it's not discretionary.
Mhm.
Last week, was it only a week ago? It was only.
it was.
So, but Jim, I'm with you. Is there anything driving us other than, hey, we could reduce it by 87,000 this year? Is there anything driving us to do it this year? I think the answer is no. Why not wait a year, garner additional facts and information as we go through the CBA process? I saved you $5 last year, I was able to save you $10 this year, that's a pretty good return. I don't know, or, hey man, I'm sorry, I was only able to save you $4 next year. Okay, it's $1, is we're talking, but why waste all your powder before you even get to the big decision on the CBA? The CBA.
Because I think, and I apologize that I'm sort of thinking about this out loud. I'm sort of,
Thinking about all
yeah,
that's all the
I-
answers.
I think to say for the community, to say you have this sort of pot of money that you have sole discretion over, and you're not tapping into, I need a pretty compelling reason not to tap into that. I like the approach, again, as I'm thinking about it, of sort of using a little bit of it, not using it all, but using a little bit of it, because then you're doing two things. You're sort of showing that you're sort of open to use this money that's available to reduce things for folks. You're also not blowing it all, because you're sort of prudent and thinking there could be things, coming that we see on the horizon that we want to have some, so I think a sort of measured and a balanced approach feels.
I would also remind folks, we do not need to make a final decision on this this evening. And we can go through our budget hearing and get input from the public, which I'm sure we will probably get some, I think this year we'll probably get some input, I would think. And we can finalize our decision after that.
That makes sense to me. And I agree with what, like, you're right, it's not apples to apples on the lights in this, so I understand that. I was just, my thing is just, I don't think it's gonna impact the taxpayer that much by that 87. I think it's gonna be a small percentage at the end of the day for us to use the money, that's all.
So we will need to present drafts to the public for the public hearing. So I think you'll have to decide what you would like that
A
draft to be.
proposal that
Yeah.
we can change.
Yeah.
So you want to go with what Duncan suggested then, half and half for this?
I would lean a little conservative and go 1/3.
I like the
and hold
third.
back
Yeah.
2/3.
Third, a third, a
Because
third?
then after the assessment, if we need a bigger chunk, we have 2/3. You know, like,
I have
I agree with
one more question.
Yes, Nancy.
You know, this is a reduction, a small reduction, but to the overall operating budget. And then to the total budget with the teacher contract warrant articles. Last year we had a pretty controversial reduction at ILES that people were concerned about because we were eliminating a program. We don't have that kind of thing this year, but next year, the first year of a new teacher's contract, and it will be the first year of a support staff contract as well. That's usually a jump. And whether there's separate warrant articles or not, the taxpayer feels it as a total. So when that thought came into my mind, I was thinking maybe we better save this and not do it this year because we might want to use it next year, even if it's a small amount.
It'll be worth more money next year, hopefully.
Nancy, just as a point of clarification, we didn't eliminate a program, we eliminated a position and absorbed the programming into other parts, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Including starting International Club, which the board supported as
Right.
extracurricular.
Mhm.
Maybe what might be helpful is just to add the 87 back in and then hear from the public. And then again, you still have the discretion to reduce further or
Sure.
to make
I
changes.
think it's reasonable.
I would agree.
So I do think the next pages, if we go through here, add 87,000, right, Ashley, to be,
Yes.
yes, so just,
87,000 have been reduced.
okay, so it assumes
So you
that
have to
we-
add it back
yes,
in. Okay.
yeah, so,
Mhm.
so, there's a slight adjustment here, but the page 2 really is looking at estimated revenue and how much then would need to be raised by taxes.
So what's that at, like about 0.3% to the? So that takes us over 7.
Is any questions on the estimated revenues? And their estimates, we try to be very conservative with them.
Where the special education aid takes a 100+% jump.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that driven by the increased number of students requiring special education as well as the complexity of their cases?
It's driven by the complexity of their cases.
Okay.
So I think the threshold had been 72, now it's 79,000, almost 80. So if you hit 80,000 in a student's programming, you can bill the state for anything above that. They are promising now 80% on the dollar. There'd been a time it was closer to like 60 cents on the dollar, but they are promising 80. So that is a conservative number because there's a lot of things, the way it was written in the IEP, the way the billing cycle, all kinds of stuff comes into play. We anticipate it will be higher than that 300,000, but we wanted to be conservative here. And we have systems in place to try to track so that anything that we can bill, we are working to.
I'm gonna be careful here to, looking at the local revenue other than the auditorium. I should just leave it there.
I will say, again, that is a conservative number. I think we were about
Last year we were about
44,000
40,000.
last year in revenue, the auditorium. But we try to work conservatively on that.
The food service revenue, does that, these numbers take into account, those accounts that have not been settled, that are overdrawn or that are in arrears?
It doesn't. There's actually an offsetting expense within the budget for the same amount, so it's really a wash.
Okay.
It's to allow the funds to be exchanged to go into the food service fund.
So of that 395, is that all federal funds?
Just food service program. Service
Just
program.
program itself?
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha.
The 200,000 is for the federal grants.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions on this? You want to roll on
Page
there?
one is pretty much what we just went through all last time anyways.
Right.
I think if my math was right, it's 6.99% over last year.
Mhm.
So the next page is what it would be per town, estimated, again, always an estimate, of impact on taxes for each warrant article. And again, we have to add another 87,000 into the operating budget just to work that. But I mean, you're within close to what it would be as an impact. As presented, the board may still make some changes. Page 4 is some draft warrant articles. The first one is kind of the standard one about reports. Second one is, I don't know if the board certainly can make changes to what you're paying the moderator all the way through the treasurer. Article 3 is the teacher contract for the 1 year. Article 4 is, should that not pass, if it's defeated, then it's a warrant to have a special meeting later on. Article 5, that is the operating budget. So whatever amount you choose tonight would be what would be presented for the public hearing, which we do have to put in the paper and so forth. And then Article 6, I anticipate Article 6 will probably have to be amended on the floor or by the board at the meeting, because right now we're at 160,000 in funds and raised funds that, our hope is will continue to increase a bit. So ultimately that will have to be adjusted before people vote on it.
What is the drop dead date to have this before we have to notice it for the hearing, which is
For the
February
hearing.
4th?
So I think that's 7 days prior. Yeah, so I think I would go with this for the
Yeah.
hearing,
Okay,
and then understanding that it's going to change before, probably after the hearing, that Tuesday after, the board typically will vote on what goes on the actual warrant.
Yeah, we don't post until February 17th. For annual meeting.
And then I highlighted there is open enrollment. I don't know. I've learned that there are some, at least another elementary school that I don't think is necessarily in close proximity to us, is going to put on an open enrollment. I think that's gonna probably have a neighbor of theirs put on an open enrollment as a result. And, you know, that could bleed over our way. I think from a high school standpoint, I believe a neighbor that we already have an agreement with is probably gonna put something on, but because we have an agreement, I think we're okay there. So it may be okay to wait and see what open enrollment looks like after this legislative season. You know, I think there's proposals at play, that probably by the end of the legislative session, it will look different than it does today.
In terms of having more guidance.
Yeah.
guidelines.
Well, I think, you know, I think it will be interesting to see if the whole state is having a whole state approach to it, or if it will still be district by district.
I would be in favor of not having an open enrollment warrant in our meeting. I think that's just, it's so open-ended now. I think I wouldn't even know how we would come up with a plan that would be meaningful.
And the risk, I'm sorry, I was just thinking, the
Yeah.
risk might be that by not declaring yourself an open enrollment, you're setting what percent can come in, or how many can come in and how many can go out. So some districts were, you know, looking at 0-0. Some attorneys said, so 0 out, 0 in. Some attorneys said, well, you could have 0 out and then like 1 in, or a percent in that looks at least like you're doing some good faith to what the original genesis of the law was. If you don't set anything, you know, we could have 10 kids who could try to go to an open enrollment district, and we are on the hook for 80% of the tuition. I'm not sure where,
That school's tuition, not our tuition.
no, our
Our
tuition.
Our
So
tuition.
whatever our, you know, so we are about,
34,000.
so 80% of that is what we would be expected to pay the other place. Now, families have to transport their children. And on top of that, you would be, the home district would be responsible for special education costs if there are such costs.
Yeah, then I guess I'm confused. Then how is a warrant article, in this uncertain environment, how is a warrant article binding?
How does it protect you?
Yeah,
So the idea behind it is that it is, you're saying you're setting a limit that only 1 could go out. Like if you said it 0 can leave and 1 can come in, you at least have an ability to challenge another district who's sending you a bill saying, wait a minute, we established ourselves as open enrollment and we said 0 could leave. So from our perspective, we don't owe you any money. If you don't do that, so, you know, Pittsfield was a big case. Pittsfield was not open enrollment. They hadn't established themselves. A neighboring community became open enrollment, took students from Pittsfield, and then sent them bills that the law said, Pittsfield, you're on the hook for that money. Had Pittsfield set themselves, you know, potentially as, you know, an open enrollment where 0 could leave and maybe, you know, 1 could come in, they, you know, I think that too might have to get worked out in the court system.
Yeah, it'd
But
be a
right now,
different
an
lawsuit.
attorney would say, you know,
You're not really open enrollment
Correct.
because you said 0, right?
right. So I think you know, there is a risk. I think it's probably a limited risk at this point not to do it.
Particularly with things already in the works, working their way through the court system.
Yeah.
Mr. Claudel.
So if I hear you correctly, Mary Lee, and Duncan kind of answered your question, I think, by not having this warrant we open ourselves to risk of some level.
Yeah.
Not, some level that is not zero, of risk of what another district could do. Send us a bill.
Correct.
So I would suggest that maybe we do need to do this in a defensive manner, as Mary has suggested.
I just,
The risk is low, but never zero, or,
Yeah.
getting eaten by a shark or whatever you want to call it.
I just wonder around, to my understanding, like the open enrollment is essentially to give parents like freedom, right, and choice. And so if we set something like that now of our own accord, how do we communicate that to the parents where it's kind of becoming like a first come, first served basis? You know, like this child will be paid for, but another child won't. That becomes a difficulty.
So if you set it as zero could go out, you're saying you're not going to pay for any students to go.
You wouldn't want to set it at like 5, that would,
Right.
you know.
Right, if you set it at 5, then you might want to do first come, first serve.
But again, then that would be a very difficult conversation to have with those families,
Yes.
right? Like who are like, I want to exercise my right
Yeah.
here. So I kind of, it's difficult. I think I do lean towards waiting for like structure to come. You know, let other people experiment.
I don't,
But
I'm
it
just
is-
suggesting,
it is an interesting
we
risk.
wouldn't want a nasty surprise
Right, it's hard.
based on what somebody else did. So
But if
I
we're
hear,
saying,
I hear what you're saying, but I think, well, if we say like, hey, 0% out, then you don't have to have that conversation. Because you're saying, you can send your kids to another school in another district,
Mhm.
and you are paying the tuition just like we currently do. And
Right.
Interlakes will not cover that bill. We're saying that very clearly.
So what I
And
would
if we
say,
say, and I apologize, Mary, for the interruption, but if I'm off base, please correct me. And if you set a very low bar of, hey, I'll pick on Laconia because Laconia, right? Like, if you want to send these students to Interlakes, we'll take 1, and then you minimize the bill, or 1%, or whatever that comes out to be for student body. That hopefully minimizes the nastiness of that surprise, should that be taken advantage of.
so I think in terms of like, when you talk about the nastiness surprise, if people are becoming open enrollment and leaving that pretty door wide open for how many can come, that's what's kind of decimating like neighboring communities.
Yeah.
Like so that's the part that being, defensive, particularly if it starts showing up in your backyard that way.
Yeah.
If you were to say 5 could go out, then I would suggest you're adding minimally another $150,000 to the budget
Mhm.
to pay tuition. And then you have to also think about what might be the impact for special education, because now you're not,
Yeah.
what we might be able to share as a service in district, now we'd have to buy that service somewhere else.
Right.
So I think if you were trying to do it from a defensive standpoint, I think you'd probably want to go like 0, 1,
Mhm.
Out
and
of it,
I'm sorry,
0 out.
0 out and 1 in.
One single student.
That would be it. That would be the defensive move.
Nancy?
Either way, I'm feeling like we need to address this at the budget hearing because, as a parent who doesn't know anything about this, who says, I want my kids to have that choice. If I want to send them to Moultonborough or Laconia or, we need to explain, what you just said, and that this is a changing landscape.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling like we should say 0, 1, right? Because that limits the impact on any of our neighboring districts, but it also says that keeps the options open. It means we can't be landed with a big bill. But if in fact things change dramatically, we're gonna have another hearing
Yeah.
about this because
Right.
Just to clarify, we can't get a big bill. We can get a bill.
Yeah.
We just, at this point, because if we pass this, we could say, no, we don't.
Correct.
And then we go to court.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
and pay the bill that way. to
Correct.
The lawyer.
Correct.
If we don't pass this.
Your risk is
That's what I'm.
Is wide.
Yeah.
And, I want to be respectful of other communities, but just surprised, if one starts and then the neighboring, like it just is, it's a domino
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
And if the door is left very wide open, let's say 20 students can come for a neighboring district, that, can really be very detrimental.
So there are not very many risks of doing this now, right? Like taking this posture now, it may not be the shield we'd like it to be because it plays out in court, but there's no real downside. It sounds like to sort of at least putting this line in this, this line.
I guess I am concerned that there is a downside. Is this in a time of uncertainty where we don't know the framework that we're going to be operating in? Are we telling people in our community by saying that we're going to allow 0 out? Is that alienating to people who are going to become exercised?
But isn't this, and I might be completely wrong, this feels like it's preserving the status quo, right? Like you can't do that now, right? And so saying 0 out is what we effectively have now is if I want to send my children to another school, I have to pay, and so we're sort of preserving that.
It could well be temporary.
Yes,
Because we're waiting for a landscape to solidify.
Yeah, I mean, hearing you, Duncan, because if this is swirling around out there in the environment, someone say, "Oh, well, geez, my school's not allowing." I mean, but we're not. The reality is we're not allowing is not the word, but it's not.
We're not paying for it.
We're not paying for it.
There's a difference between, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can still send
yeah.
your kids to another school, but as
Right.
is the status quo, you have to pay the tuition.
I think based on our level of discussion, I would agree with Nancy that we should leave this and talk, at least address it, right? So that the community understands what we're talking about here that may not be listening. Even if we make no changes or do anything else, just bringing it up, I think is pertinent.
Go ahead, Siobhan.
I also wonder how much, I understand that this is like very nascent in a way, so there may not necessarily be like existing pseudo data to think about, but I know that we do exit interviews when children do leave the district, and are there, is there anything that can be gleaned from that at all, like over the last 3 or 5 years, and why families move, that might help us anticipate in any way, whether or not families would opt for this to send children out if the floodgates open.
We'd have to do an analysis on that. We can certainly do that.
And are they moving for different or
Yeah.
better education,
Yeah.
like something like that, that might be helpful, I'm not sure, but in the mind.
So 2 questions, Mary. One,
Hockey.
so if we pass the 0-1 model, if somebody wanted to send their kid here, they would just, if we wanted to take them, we could still take them. They would pay the full tuition that's set that we have.
Oh, you mean if somebody made a request? I think that would be a question I'd want to get a legal opinion on. I don't know if that's limiting.
And then my second corollary to that, I think, is if we did pass this, get this passed, would it complicate our existing memorandum of understanding with Molten Borough?
I don't think so, because it does afford, at least one legal opinion talking about existing memorandums staying in place. But I think what we would want to do is have an attorney really help draft that warrant article.
Is there any benefit to seeking other memorandums of understandings with other districts in our region that, like in a similar way?
I feel like the relationship we have with Marlboro, I feel like that works very well. I think, again, the more we start complicating it with, a lot of options, I think becomes more of a challenge to to maintain, because again, we are responsible for special education costs when they go to Molten Borough. You know, that's our director working with their director. And I think that has been a very productive relationship for both groups.
And to be clear, those special education costs, they weren't what it was costing us here at Interlakes. It's what it costs
Correct.
the receiving school
Correct.
to administer the
Yeah.
programming.
You know, we did last year, there's the Lakes Region High School Consortium, so like we can share some courses. What I would say is that can get more challenging for other districts is they do receive state adequacy. So like they would start losing that potentially.
Right.
Both Molten Borough and Interlakes do not receive any adequacy, so that's at least a kind of a level playing field. But you know, it is a changing landscape.
Yeah.
I think the other piece that I would also want an attorney to help us with is with our collective bargaining agreement. In essence, so teachers' children are allowed to attend for free, provided they're in good standing. Their home district is responsible for special education costs, and we do bill them. So, you know, we have already, in a way, we typically have about 17 or so students.
Not all special ed, just
No, I'm
total
sorry.
students.
Yes. So, you know, in essence, you know, we
Kind
have
of open enrollment for
kind of
teachers.
created a little
Yeah.
subcategory of that. And again, I think that would be an existing agreement that's in place. So the warrant article, like it would just have to be taken into consideration. Like that 0-1 would mean for open enrollment and not other agreements.
Beyond other agreements.
So you would need to, I think, do you want something that you can at least put on the public hearing and get input? You could always take it off, but I think it's difficult to put, like, I think you need something to look at to have the discussion.
From what I heard from board members, I think there's support for the 0-1 approach, for lack of a better term, is that?
Yeah.
So I think the board is authorizing you to work with our
Okay.
attorney to answer the questions that you brought up and that others brought up, and come up with
Great.
some sort of a draft.
Great.
For consideration at the budget hearing.
And the reason it's not 0-0, Mary, is just based on opinions that you've received, that it feels a little bit more.
That was, you know, told that was, you know, not considered in good faith.
Okay.
That wasn't really, although I don't know why it wouldn't be 1-1,
Yeah, that seems puzzling to me that 0-1 would
Yeah.
be seen as good faith,
but,
because you're not
Maybe you'll
paying-
get legal advice that says, no, it should be
Right.
one.
so I'll ask somebody different, and see if it's, you know, because in my mind, that would at least say, okay, you're honoring you're honoring it in both ways, but, okay, so I will work to get something
The
drafted.
biller.
Thank you, Mary.
It's like
So I don't know if the board has questions on the budget or we have various folks here this evening. If there's any specific questions on what was presented last week or?
I don't have any other questions besides what we talked about last week that we addressed, so I personally good.
Thank you, Jim.
Me too.
I heard that.
Hey, Nancy, Ed. All right, I think we're good with this version of the budget.
So it is the number then on the warrant article is?
Would you like the number?
We'd love the number, and please state it loudly and clearly.
Thank you, I will. $37,295,115.
Thank you, Ashley.
Right. Which is an increase of 5.71%.
That has the 86 back in it.
87.
87.
Good. Okay. All right, so we will update materials for the public hearing.
Do you need to vote on it or do you just?
Oh, yes,
You're gonna vote on
I
it?
should vote on that, yeah.
Want to vote on that number?
So the motion would be to take this draft budget, because it is a draft, to the budget hearing on February 4th.
And the draft warrant articles.
and the draft warrant articles. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Abe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Passed
you.
unanimously.
And I do want to thank, it's such a team effort. Everybody worked really hard on the budget and really
Thank you.
appreciate people's attention to it.
Yes, and that is an understatement. Thank you all very much, because these are challenging times for everybody, and we're doing the best we can. We're gonna need to get a little public feedback. So, thank you. Next up, we have the Interlakes Middle High School 26-27 Program of Studies. We have a video to watch, because none of us did our homework.
The teacher did not lay it out well.
Could not flip this classroom.
I don't know what the user experience will be for our two viewers with the live stream of us watching the video, but I'm sharing it with them. But
Actually, before you start, Mr. Parsons, learned a new AI tool that we were able to put into effect here. So Mr. Connell will open it, but then using an AI generated reader, I guess, was able to do the read the script and did a really nice job, and it saved a ton of time. So
gave away our guest star.
I know.
Abraham Lincoln.
My name is Nick Connell, the Director of School Counseling for the Interlake School District. I am excited to share a draft proposal for the 2026-2027 Interlakes Middle High School Program of Studies. My hope is that this presentation will provide a clear overview of the potential changes being considered for future programming, as well as important context and background on how these proposals were developed. I wanted to introduce this presentation, but I will be turning things over to an integrated assistant narrator to provide more details and help keep content succinct. I will be happy to answer any follow-up questions you may have at the upcoming school board meeting.
The New Hampshire Education Department sets minimum standards for school approval, ensuring a baseline across the state. Our local control allows us to offer a robust program of studies and rich co-curriculars. The recent overhaul of the minimum standards includes 7 major themes. We will focus on competency-based education and new graduation requirements. This shifts the emphasis from seat time to demonstrating mastery. The Interlake School Board's commitment to competency-based education, evidenced by the 2020 adoption of our design principles, positions us well to respond to these new minimum standards. Since October, we have been collaborating with our teachers on this work. We have prioritized professional collaboration time during faculty meetings, district extended afternoon meetings, and collaborative planning blocks. Our process has provided a voice to our teachers and enabled us to collaboratively build a new program of studies that meets and exceeds the changes in the minimum standards. Let's review the changes in credit distributions and state minimum standards for our incoming freshmen. The state minimum requirement remains 20 credits. This slide represents the old state minimum graduation requirements and the new graduation requirements that went into effect in December of 2024. Notably, we see English decreasing its credit requirement by 1/2 credit, and 1/2 credit of writing is required. Math remaining at 3 credits, including algebra credit that can be earned through a sequential, integrated, or applied program. These 3 credits will now need to include algebraic concepts and at least 1/2 credit in statistics or data analysis. Social studies and business are shifting from 2.5 to 4.5 credits. The addition of a 1/2 credit in the area of logic and rhetoric. A decrease in electives from 6 to 4. The minimum credits remain at a total of 20. Next, how do these changes impact the Interlakes graduation requirements specifically? This slide represents a proposal for how Interlakes graduation requirements and credit distributions may change for next year's incoming freshmen and beyond. Notably, we see 1/2 credit of writing will be embedded in all core English courses. 1/2 credit of statistics or data analysis will be embedded within Algebra 1, Applied Math, and Algebra 2 courses. A proposal to remove 1/2 of a credit of Earth-Space Science as a requirement and replace it with 1 credit of a science elective. 1/2 credit of logic and rhetoric embedded within the Action Civics course. A decrease in electives, The minimum credits remain at a total of 26. While the state's minimum elective requirement decreased from 6 to 4 credits, Interlakes will only decrease electives from 10 to 9. This maintains a robust offering while meeting new state requirements. Recommended changes to math include rebranding intermediate algebra to applied math, consolidating algebra 2A and 2B, and adding honors advanced algebra and college algebra. Statistics or data analysis will be embedded in core algebra courses. The Social Studies Department proposes renaming American and state government to Action Civics, which will now include logic and rhetoric. History courses are also being renamed for better alignment, and AP Seminar is a new offering. In addition to required credits, the Social Studies Department is currently responsible for 2 assessments that are required for a diploma, which are a performance assessment and the civics assessment. In science, earth and space science content will be removed from the New Hampshire statewide assessment system science exam. In response to this shift, the Science Department is proposing the removal of earth and space science as a graduation requirement, replacing it with a 1-credit science elective of the student's choice. Additionally, the New Hampshire Department of Education is moving the administration of the New Hampshire statewide assessment system science exam from grade 11 to grade 10. The English department recommends removing the mass media elective and offering it as an extracurricular activity. We will maintain 4 English credits, with half a credit in writing embedded in all required English classes. The STEAM department proposes shifting web page design from a 1-credit early college course to a half-credit elective, which will no longer offer early college credit. This is intended to broaden its appeal to a wider range of students. Finally, there are a few additional items to highlight. Departments will continue refining the scope and sequence of their courses. New competencies will be embedded within courses, primarily in social studies and English, to ensure alignment with ED 306 requirements. Through the new minimum standards, students will have the opportunity to earn credit for co-curricular activities through an evaluation and approval process. The middle high school will be working on developing this process over the next year. The program of studies will highlight this as a potential option for students. Learners will continue to receive support for flexible and individualized graduation pathways. Thank you for your time. We hope these proposed changes will meet the needs of our learners and prepare them for success in their chosen post-secondary paths.
Helpful to go by content area, and Erica is here to offer her expertise. She probably knows the minimum standards better than anybody in the state. Would you like us to do that approach, go by content area, or?
I guess I'd like to know, what is the ask tonight of the school board?
So to approve the changes we are proposing, so the ones that have been.
Just saw.
Yep, that you just saw, which if you look at your handout on page between 54 and 55 is a breakdown of how the requirements change. Maybe that's a good place to start. So these are page 54 and 55 are showing you the new requirements that we're suggesting for high school graduation. So 27, 28, and 29 are impacted differently than 2030 and beyond because of when things are become activated.
So maybe we'll start, do board members have questions about the changes?
Not particularly, I think just to highlight, this is, was this what I sent you guys an email about there too, just asking, originally trying to understand this a little bit. So I think ultimately the credits are the same, you're just adapting the curriculum to meet the new standards.
Yep.
Keep our standards higher or above.
Yep.
And
Correct.
ask basically the same thing with a little bit of a redesign.
Correct. That is a good summary.
And part of this was driven by
The
legislative changes, correct?
The administrative rules for minimum standards in the state. Yeah.
Okay.
Ed 306s.
Is there, and I'm looking specifically at the addition of what was it, logic and rhetoric, which I think is phenomenal. What are you going to have to do? What are the buildings, the principals going to have to do in terms of professional development in order to align the existing faculty training courses, whatever, in order to to address these? It sounds like not too much, but there's been some that this is an addition, this is a new
Yeah.
thing, so.
So logic and rhetoric, the decision was made that it will sit in social studies. So through required social studies courses, the logic and rhetoric expectation will be met. Now, the state did not define logic and rhetoric with a great deal of explicitity. Would you, Erica, do you want to jump in on that?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. The teachers, one of the exercises that we did with them during our professional development day was we actually shared with them, in addition to just logic and rhetoric, there are 4 discrete skills that the state has identified as part of minimum expectations for that new competency. And so the teachers went through an exercise where they looked at their existing curriculum documents and had discussion about where, if at all, did they see alignment in what they're currently doing with those 4 skills. So the great news is that we were able to identify a lot of these skills in all of our content areas, actually. And so at the end of the day, we actually had at one point maybe 5 or 10 different examples of here's how we might do this. And some of them were pretty innovative, however, a little difficult in terms of the tracking methods that are required from the school counseling department to determine that students have met all of their graduation requirements. So in the end, while there were a lot of ideas, it was decided that social studies was really excited to take this on because it also provided them an opportunity to redesign what formerly had been civics that they're also moving to the 10th grade. So additionally, with that time being expanded for that course, it enables them to build that out a little bit more. So they're actively working on it right now. And the great news is all of these skills are things that our teachers are currently teaching our students.
What I would say is we have talked about some additional summer time for people to have time to collaborate, which the budget that you have supported moving forward to the public hearing does include funds for that.
Siobhan?
Madam Papalardo, I would love to hear a bit more about the shift in the science requirement from specifically Earth, and what was the title of it? Earth and
So this Earth Space
Earth and
Science.
Space, right.
Yes,
So more general.
The statewide assessment has always had 3 different scientific domains assessed on it. So it had been a third, a third, a third. And over several years, having opportunities to collaborate with the Department of Education, a lot of the frustrations that we experience locally is that the state minimum standards never required that domain of science be part of a graduation requirement. Yet we were always assessing that as a third of the student knowledge that was expected by the time they were juniors. So with a great deal of collaboration, and we actually had Dr. Nate Green here on campus working with us.
And he's
some
with the
science-
Department of Ed.
and he was here supporting some science curriculum work that we were doing, and just the great partnership that we have with the department and other schools also sharing the same frustration with, the scores really reflecting something that's not even really required as part of a minimum class. So that there was a lot of feedback that I think inspired the department to reconsider just the structure of the assessment and then also the placement. Because the farther students are away from learning, obviously, they're going to have some knowledge loss. So with the shift in the timing, it also aligns more closely with when they're actually taking the required courses. So the hope is that next year when this shift happens, we'll see an impact. You may recall our science teachers actually came to you a couple of years ago seeking support to implement that Earth and Space as a graduation requirement, which you did, and that was the reason behind it. So now with that removed from the statewide assessment, the teachers would like to keep that credit where it is because it really kind of keeps us pretty similar with a lot of other New Hampshire schools in terms of the number of science credits that are required for graduation. But they just will free that third one up for, it could be an elective.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Earth, Space, Science, maybe it's not.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Eric, I'll come to you in just a sec. Eric, so I'm gonna state the obvious. So all our teachers are well aware of this. It sounds like they probably have broad support for what I think are pretty good changes here. Is that accurate?
I would say so, yes.
Great. And so this is no surprise. We're gonna hit the ground running and boy, it's gonna be great. Excellent. Thank you, Ed. And then Nancy after Ed.
I don't know who this goes to, so what if anything, do these changes do to the current status of the school's accreditation?
Oh, it doesn't have an impact on it.
The state does every 2 years a survey that essentially asks, are we doing what we're expected to by these rules? And so that process just happened this year and mostly just involves a narration of how we're meeting these expectations within our programming.
So precisely why I asked, we just got the, yes, you've done everything you're supposed to do letter.
Correct.
And then, oh, hey, we're gonna change what you're supposed to do. So
So-
does this letter carry forward or?
They're not related.
Yeah, so NEASC is one thing.
State.
The state saying that, we've met the minimum standards is another thing.
Okay.
So every 2 years, we have to do a survey, and it's a self-survey. So all the principals do that here's the minimum standards, how are we meeting those minimum standards? So the state will decide if we've, met their threshold. And then NESC is different. And, it's not a substantial change. What the NESC would be like if we cut out a program, like if we were reducing, offerings in science, that would be a different, scenario. If we said we were only gonna offer, biology and physical science, and that's a major change to our system, we would have to write to them and explain that. But this is, basically, we're adding in the minimum standards that are required by our state into our programming. So it's not a substantial change.
Nancy?
This isn't a comment on the course of study, but a couple of references in here. Mastery, performance assessments, and alternative paths to graduation are really interesting to me. And partly, I remember when we were talking about competency-based assessments, and I haven't been on the school board all that long, I don't think, but this seems like a logical succession to having shifted to competency-based assessments. And I'd love for you to just fill in that conceptual piece a little bit.
Absolutely. Our state, the Department of Education has supported that shift since 1998. And kind of the where I've landed on kind of giving an analogy here is like the door has always been open to say like, we're competency based and we support you. But now it's kind of like the door isn't just open, it's actually like you're now having to move through it. And so the example that I'll pull from the video is on the last slide, Mr. Connell spoke about co-curriculars now being an opportunity for students to earn graduation credits. Again, like that we've always had that opportunity to kind of design our own competency-based system. And now we're kind of, okay, now here's the next step. So I also see it as an evolution. I believe it was very intentional. In all the times that the minimum standards have been revised, normally it's just one rule at a time that gets a revision. This is the first time in our state's history where the entire set of rules was completely revised to adopt some of this thinking. And so, one of the things we'll be collaborating on is establishing a process for students to be able to go through who are participating in those activities, who feel like their experience is providing them the opportunity to demonstrate mastery.
So can you give us an example of a co-curricular program or option? For a student?
Absolutely. Yeah, so where it gets tricky for me is when I think about the competency sets that aligned to courses, and then we think about co-curriculars, like let's say theater for an example. You know, you've got to be, that one of the competencies in our English department is speaking, listening, and viewing. So we might argue there's a really natural alignment there. Also in our English competencies, all of our core courses also carry writing and reading skills. So, you know, would that experience necessarily translate to those competencies? Perhaps, perhaps not. Could it? Could there be some kind of self-designed, motivated learner who takes an opportunity to construct some kind of experience and then bring that forward for approval? That would be something that I would see as a potential. Where we've decided to begin the work is to create a list of all of the co-curriculars and then just map out to what extent do they already very naturally align to existing competencies. And where it gets tricky is, you know, we're aligning credit based off of the number of competencies that align to courses, right? So some of them may have 3, some of them may have 7. So it kind of begs the question, like, what is a competency worth now? So some people might be tinkering with that a little bit. And in fact, some people are. Some people have decided to increase weighting of some courses in order to absorb some of the new requirements, therefore increasing their total local graduation rate, required credits. So some people have chosen to do that.
Mr. Guerin.
Do any of these changes have upstream impacts on our elementary and middle school learners? I mean, you know, preparing for new types of courses, do we think about flowing those through down to our younger learners, or is that not?
Most of the changes that actually has a great question. Most of the changes that happened in the minimum standards impact high school level. And so the great thing about the work we've done is it's involved our 7th and 8th grade teams, which are really kind of having them aware of these changes, I think is more critically important than the elementary schools. I see less of an impact.
That makes sense. I was just thinking things like, you know, new thing like data analysis, statistics, or the writing requirement. Does that mean we need to embed more of that into sort of the elementary?
That's a good question.
But yeah, it makes sense. The middle school makes sense in the first place.
And that writing competency is one that exists all the way backwards from 12 all the way down. The math competencies are aligned to the Common Core state standards. So where state statistics and data appear, those competencies appear in the elementary grades as well.
Okay, got it.
So it's a nice alignment.
Okay.
And again, I hope it was not lost on the board. You know, I just highlighting the work that was done to set the stage for this work. There are school districts that when receiving the new minimum standards had not done the work of building competency sets and looking at grading and reporting practices and philosophies and beliefs and how that translates into how we do our jobs. And, you know, I really want to just acknowledge the board's foresight on that leadership and the superintendents as well. Without having that framework, we would not have been as well positioned as we were. The teachers were not stressed out. We were able to message, because we've done this work, we just have to have a few conversations, do a little analysis, make some decisions, easy peasy. So it was a really nice process for them. So not only are they very aware, but it was like nothing that, it was not stressful at all. It was a very amenable process for all of us.
And Erica needs to certainly be acknowledged for her significant heavy lifting on all of this, which has made this, again, a much easier process for us at this stage, but certainly didn't come without a lot of hard work to get here. So it might be helpful actually to reverse the order of the agenda and have the board consider the proposed changes to graduation requirements. So what's presented on page 54 and 55. So that is how the distribution of credits required to graduate with a diploma.
Questions on requirements? And I would entertain a motion to approve.
Yes, I put that forward
Second.
with gratitude to all teachers and
With Siobhan and Dukin.
administrators involved. So,
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed? Thank you.
And if you go back to program of studies, so again, this is just it's the descriptions of all of our courses. It incorporates the requirements. Believe it or not, we will begin working with students on selections for next year.
Yes, here.
So
I move
it
to
was,
accept the program of, the 2026-27 program of studies as presented.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments on the program of studies? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
thank you.
And Ms. Papalardo, I do want to say, I'm always so impressed by your grasp of this information and of your work in education. It's impressive.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right. So we've gotten a couple things done tonight,
Yes, then there's a donation.
and there's a donation. The Church of Another Chance, in the amount of $500 for the Student in Need Fund. And Mary, can you tell us a little bit about the Student in Need
So
Fund?
our nurses and our outreach counselor helped to identify families who might have needs. And so we have some funds through donations that.
So is
maybe
that
it's a-
any need,
It could
like
be
travel
gift, it
or
could be,
food?
it could
or-
be gift cards to go to Hannaford. It could be needing sneakers for a kid. So it's having a very close understanding of what families might need and having some funds to support those.
Great. I would entertain a motion to accept with gratitude.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Ms. Stommer. Thank you, Ms. Connolly. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. I have no other business myself this evening. Do any other board members have any other business?
I have something I would like to state, if I may.
Ms. Connolly, the floor is yours.
I'm realizing that I'm at the end of my term, and I was reflecting as I was listening to all the questions, how really, like, I feel so grateful to each and every one of you. I feel like I have such a good understanding of who each of you are, and I'm really grateful to have learned alongside you for the last 3 years. So I love the school district more than ever now. And I feel really proud to say that I'm a school board member here and to have been able to say that. I love our district, and so thank you all. And I can't see you, Brian, but I'm also talking to you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Siobhan. All right, so it is now, Mr. Parsons, do we have any other folks?
You do not.
Anybody here? Would anybody like to make any final comments in the peanut gallery? All right, hearing none, I am closing public comment at 5:34. Announcements. We are not going to, based I can tell, we do not need another meeting on the 27th unless somebody can demonstrate to me right now why we would need to. Because we made all our decisions tonight with what we're going to go, and the plan is to basically use our budget hearing as a fact-finding mission to give us the final direction. And that budget hearing is February 4th at 6 p.m. at the community auditorium up on the hill. We will be sitting up on the stage. Abe, just so you know, because you've never been there
I'll
before.
dress up.
Okay.
I'll wear my good socks.
Just so long as they match, that's all we ask.
I think they put the skirt out.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Seconded by Abe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.